Oh, it's so close, guys. I have to do a second coat on those, and this is all I have left. Oh no. Hello everyone. This is a very special episode because I'm teaming up with 23 other amazing YouTubers to bring you an awesome furniture flip for less than $100 in total, including materials, the furniture, all of it. Here are the rules. The $100 must include the cost of the furniture itself. It must include any products you've used like paints and primers, top coats, repair items. It does not include hand tools, power tools, and things you have around anyway, like shop towels or rags. And we have to do it all for $100 or less. That is a tall ask. This desk is the piece that I was going to use. It was $40, but then last weekend I found this at a yard sale for $10. I'm not joking. She's pretty rough. There is no mirror, there is no bench, and if you've seen these vanities before, they sit so low that a normal chair just won't work with it. There is a ton of finish issues, but this piece is solid and sturdy, and I have a plan. I'm going to be turning this and this into two separate nightstands. This is the perfect piece for this without a bench or mirror. Let's do this. My name is Angie, and I'm the one behind Transcend Furniture Gallery. It's my mission to keep as many pieces of furniture as possible out of landfills. Sometimes I paint, sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Okay, so what makes this piece so perfect for this is the fact that the middle is a completely separate piece. It's not one solid piece across the back, which you do see fairly often. I'm gonna spin this around and I'll show you. This is what the mirror would have sat on, but that middle piece, aside from some glue blocks, which I'm gonna have to remove, and some nails, is a completely separate piece. I don't think I've flipped a piece upside down yet and not seen cobwebs. This piece is no exception, clearly, but I'm gonna give it a good cleaning after I get this all taken apart. Sometimes glue blocks come apart really easily. I'm barely tapping this. If this isn't going to come off with just the lightest tap, I'm going to use a heat gun because I don't want to wreck this veneer on the side. It's my design dream to keep the sides of this piece wood. Ooh, is it warm in here or is it just me? This block took in total about 1 minute, some gentle coaxing, and 1500 degrees of heat to come off, but we got it off. I have 5 more to go. I don't really need to take this off. I'm just pulling it out of the way because it's annoying me, to be honest. Now these were just decorative pieces on the front, but I'm going to keep them. I want to save the veneer. You never know when you're going to need to replace little patches of old veneer. And this particular veneer is thicker than some of the more modern, like mid-century and forward veneer, so I always hang on to that stuff when I can. I'm being super careful when I'm prying this off. I don't want to dent this side. I still don't know if I'm going to be able to save the side, but I'm going to try. So another reason this piece was the perfect candidate to turn into night tables is because it's got 4 legs on each pedestal. So a lot of times you'll see vanities and they'll only have feet or legs on the outside and nothing on the inner sides of each pedestal, and obviously that's not going to work unless you're going to replace the whole bottom. But in this case, it was perfect. I'm going to make 2 nightstands and I'm going to try to do it for $100. The sort of benchmark here is $100 US. I'm going to take that a step further and try to do it for $100 Canadian, which would be a fair bit less, and we'll make this a bit harder than it already is. There's a good sized chunk of wood missing from the back here. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but I'm going to figure something out. I'm taking the top off because it's going to make it so much easier to strip the old finish off and paint the edges without having to worry about getting paint where I don't want it, etc. This will just be a whole lot easier. Just a little love tap here and out this comes. Now before I move this anywhere, I'm going to take a marker and mark a number on the base and the same number on the underside of this so that I know exactly which one this belongs to. Taking the door off as well, and then I'm going to mark it with the same number. Trust me, if you're doing something like this, you want to make sure you label your parts. It makes things go together so much better. So I'm going to be sanding most of this finish away, but I want to show you guys who maybe don't have a power sander yet that you don't necessarily need one. I paid $9.76 for this scraper, and it will cut through, when it's sharp, it will cut through a thick finish like no one's business. And I'm going to do this entire panel here by hand just to show you that it can be done. You don't need fancy tools all the time. It definitely makes life easier, but you don't have to have it. As such, I'm going to be including it in the list of materials at the end because I kind of want this video and this challenge to sort of be geared toward people that maybe don't have these products on hand already, as if you had to go out and kind of start from scratch. With the exception of a few tools, of course. Once I do this first sanding and get most of the residual material off, I'm going to go back in with a 220 grit finer sand pad and do the same thing. And then this will be my final sanding before I stain. This is the door to the same piece. This is using the orbital sander. Basically the same process, but I'm using one extra sanding pad. So I'm going to start with 100 grit, which is a little bit coarser than I normally do, but this finish is pretty thick. Then 150, then 220, and here's the result. I had no idea at this point that I would end up painting this later. Sad but true. You'll see what happens. So this is the side of the piece where that middle was attached. There's a piece of lifted veneer here from the glue block. I'm just going to pry under here, take a tiny bit of glue. I put $5 for the price here, but most of us have crazy glue or wood glue around the house. But in case you don't, that's the cost of like a dollar store brush and a cheap tube of glue. Now, if this wasn't this challenge, I would use a glue syringe to get under here, but I don't have room in the budget for that, and that's what makes this so interesting. A lot of what I did here with this piece is not how I would normally do it. For example, I would have used stripper on that thick finish before I sanded. That's what makes this really interesting. You kind of have to think outside of the box a little bit. I'm just using some scrap pieces of wood to help press this down while the veneer adheres, and some painter's tape. I didn't include the painter's tape in it. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not really sure. Most of us have masking tape or painter's tape around the house, so I didn't include things like that. Same with cleaning. I don't show it, but I use vinegar to clean this piece, and I chose vinegar because most people have it in their house along with rags or paper towels, so that's the stuff I didn't include. Things that most people would have anyway is just the extra products that I'm including in the list here. This set up well. I'm just using some 220 grit here to sand it all smooth. I'm using a walnut wood filler here that I paid $7.46 for after tax to fill the nail holes and any little gouges. And this is just a used sanding pad wrapped around one of those sponges, and I'm going to be painting all of the decorative trim and the feet. The rest is going to be wood, but anything I'm going to be painting, I'm going to do a little scuff sand here. Okay, so to fill this hole, normally, because I'm painting this, I would use Bondo, but again, Bondo's not in the budget, so I have to be a little creative here. This is definitely not what I would normally do, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of wood glue and use these chips that I've broken off from one of the discarded glue blocks. I chipped it up into little pieces of wood. I'm going to put some glue in, put some of those chips in, add a little bit more wood glue, and stuff this and see if I can fill as much of this as possible. And that way I only have to use a little bit of filler on the top. So here's my paint. I bought 2 testers of Fusion Mineral Paint. It cost me $11.48 after tax. If you're familiar at all with my videos, you've seen a custom color that I make with coal black, midnight blue, which is what these two are, but I also add ash, which is a dark gray. Ash is not in the budget, and I've never mixed these two colors 50-50, but I'm going to try to do it here. Now, there's not a lot of paint, as you can see. I'm stressing a little bit as I'm pouring this because it's less paint than I was expecting. So I'm going to try to get every bit I can out of these jars. Here's our new brush. I paid $7.93 for this. It's about half the price of the brushes I normally buy, but I wanted to give it a try. It's very soft and it felt like a decent brush, so I figured I'd give it a go. I could have taped this off, but I'm not too worried about a tiny bit of blue getting on this wood because I still have to do a final sand anyway on this particular one. Also, I'm a fan of washing my brushes in between coats. I know some people don't. I just find it keeps them from gumming up, but in this situation, I am totally not doing that. I need every drop of paint. Okay, so these are the doors. I don't love this hardware. I know some of you might get angry that I'm scrapping the Bakelite pulls, but it's just not what I'm picturing. These pulls are $15.71 a piece. I got them for $1.32, including tax, at an online auction. I think for the more modern look that I'm going for, this would be great. They cost me $5.28. That's all together. That's a great buy. I'm gonna save these Bakelite pulls though. I always hold on to them. I know they can be valuable. I'm using these wooden dowels to plug the original hardware holes here. The new pulls have holes that are spread out quite a bit wider than these, so I'm going to have to drill new holes. All I'm doing is hammering these down until they're flush with the inside of the drawer, and just using a pull saw to cut them flush. I'm going to save these little pieces that I'm cutting off to put in the other drawer. The sides of these drawers are a little dinged up as well as the inside, so I'm going to give those a sand as well, and I'll be sealing them at the end along with the rest of the piece. I'm just repeating the process here on the doors. Now, my plan has changed a bit for the doors. There's some discoloration you can see on this one, and my thought is that with the new pulls, the doors might look better in that dark navy. I just think the contrast will be nicer. We'll still have the wood on the drawer front and the top and the sides, but yeah, I'm opting to paint the doors, which almost kills me. You know how much I love my walnut, but I think design-wise this is just going to be better. So were this not a $100 challenge, I would totally use one of my General Finishes stains, but $20.68 I paid after tax for this little jar of gel stain in walnut. It's going to give me a similar color at, well, half the price, but it's also half the size. To fit it into the budget, I had to buy this one, basically. I used that same dollar store paintbrush to put some stain on the filled holes here, let it dry, and then I'm going to stain over top of that. I find that's very helpful when you're covering up wood filler or patched pieces that maybe aren't going to match so well. The same thing here with the screw holes. I used that wood filler and added a tiny bit of stain prior to the main stain, which really just helps everything be seamless. I do have a hardware template, but it wasn't very useful for these pulls because the holes are so far apart. It was beyond the scope of the template, so I had to do math, which was not my favorite thing in the world, and just map out these holes. I'm going to start sealing the piece and then add the hardware. Choosing a top coat for this was difficult because of cost, but this is one of my absolute favorite things. It's by Fusion. It's a beeswax hemp oil combo. Normally you would apply it with a brush. The brushes are like 30 bucks, so I'm going to put it on with a rag. This product is wonderful. It nourishes the wood and protects it, and it can be used over paint, which I do quite often. Keep in mind if you do put it over paint, it is going to slightly darken whatever color it is. Oh, it just wouldn't be one of my videos if there wasn't a disaster somewhere. And in this case, one of my holes was off by about 1/16 of an inch. I'm not kidding, it was so close. I tried to kind of shimmy it around. Sometimes if you put things on a slight angle, you can get it, but it just wasn't happening. So I ended up having to grab another drill bit. I just chose the next size up just to slightly widen the hole, and that did the trick. Near crisis averted. Don't forget when you're done this video to look in the description below. I'm gonna have links to the other participants. This is not a competition, we're all just having fun, and it was a great challenge, and you definitely want to go check out other people's contributions to this collaboration. It's been a blast. Okay, before the big reveal, let's get into the numbers for this flip. Did I pull it off? Was I over budget? Let's have a look. I spent $10 on the Vanity. Scraper was $9.76. Glue of some sort and a brush would be about $5. Filler was $7.46. I spent about $5 in sandpaper. The brand new brush was $7.93. The hardware was an absolute steal at $5.28. Top coat was $20.68. Stain was $20.68. And my paint, which I used every single drop of, was $11.48. Ah, so close. This brought me to $103.27 Canadian after taxes. But keep in mind, this is including buying the whole product, not just the portion of the product that I used. So I still have tons of this stuff left over. If I had done it based on only what I've used, this number would be almost half, which is mind-boggling really when you think about it. But this challenge was supposed to be in US dollars, so I'm at $82.17 US, which means I'm about roughly $18 under budget. And further still, I'd probably be about half of that if I only accounted for what I actually used instead of the entire product. This was very challenging, to say the least, but it was so much fun. Let's have one last look at this piece before I flip it on its head and turn it into two nightstands.